I've worked at the Tidewell Testing Facility for 12 years. 2 nights ago, I saw something take my friend, and now I'm not allowed to leave. Written by OscarPastries. Not many people know what goes on inside the Tidewell Testing Facility. You may have heard the odd rumors at school or work, the grumblings of a stubborn pensioner or the ramblings of a drunkard at the bar. But I've worked here for 12 years, and even I only just learnt of its true purpose. What I share with you today, I do so with best intentions at heart. My name is Dr. Nathan Calver, and I'm going to tell you everything I know about Nell. A little background, if you will. The Tidewell Testing Facility is, not to beat around the bush, a top-secret government-funded facility built decades ago in the early 80s on the outskirts of the fishing town of Long Lilliard. I'm a born and bred local, having grown up a mere 20-minute bike ride away. As a child, I'd always wondered what secrets lay inside the hulking concrete structure. The facility itself was built on an old housing estate, with a number of homes being demolished and families relocated to make way. Naturally, this caused a lot of anger and strife among the locals. But over the years, the area became less desirable to live in, and more residents simply upped and left, leaving many empty houses to fall into disrepair. The facility grew larger with time, expanding the surrounding estate and swallowing up more empty shells of former homes, but eventually ceased and became largely forgotten. No one really seemed to come or go, and the local area was mostly abandoned and unkempt. The facility simply became part of the scenery. One noticeable feature, aside from its imposing nature, was that the lights still came on at night, the only lights remaining in a quarter-mile radius. The few lights still glowing nearby belonged to the last remaining locals who just never left. Every now and again, I would hear whispers about what they were doing in that concrete giant. Hiding aliens, testing superweapons deep underground, pumping pharmaceutical compounds into the water systems. These stories all likely originate from those oddball locals. However, it's often said that the truth is stranger than fiction, and I can tell you now that none of those rumors are the truth. Subject 01, or Nell, as it has affectionately come to be known by those dedicated to studying it, is the very first of a number of quarantined artifacts to have been locked down within the facility. These artifacts are brought to us from all over the world, the very furthest reaches of our government's sphere of influence. For the past 12 years, I've studied the peculiar energies of said artifacts. From an old worn-out walking cane that seemingly imprints paranoia and ambitions of revenge temporarily into the minds of those who grasp it, to a pencil that appears to hide itself when not being observed. I've only just learned about Nell. Nell is, in fact, a room. A room decorated just like a child's. Old-fashioned indeed, with minty green walls with bright white furnishings and scattered with toys all tidied away into their correct spots. A perfectly clean, crisp, clean bed complete with fuzzy brown teddy bear in the center. Dotty in pattern and completing the room with a mint chocolate chip ice cream sort of essence. That's all I could see from where I stood, tucked away behind the impact-resistant safety glass and tight reinforced vault door at the observation point, the guard ensuring that I stand no closer. I looked on as a familiar jingling sound approached from behind me, And before I even turned around, I knew who would be standing there. "Calver," said Chance. "Busby, there's a good boy." "Dr. Chance," I responded with a nod. Dr. Giles Chance is the big man in charge. A proud man, his presence demanding a certain respect. At least it would have had he not been my mentor and a father figure to me for the last however many years. "You know, Giles," I started. "I was midway through my morning croissant before you dragged me up to, requested my immediate presence at this strange sector, deep in the bowels of the building that I've never previously been to, with only this cheerful get for company, to look into what seems to be a bedroom out of Mary Bloody Poppins. It's bloody rude if you ask me." "Now, Nate, there's no need to take it out on Bradley," said Chance with a wry smile, gesturing towards the guard in gray. "He's only looking out for your best interest after all. Which I believe means making it back safely to your beloved half-eaten croissant without further incident." "Safely," I retorted. "He frog-marched me all the way here at gunpoint. My croissant was frightened, the pencil's gone into hiding out of fear, and to top it all off, you walk around here with that vicious beast off the leash. Come here, Buzzy boy, you little monster." Busby, glued loyally to the leg of Dr. Chance up to this point, came bounding over excitedly, only to pass right by me and deposit a reservoir of slobber onto the thigh of Bradley, who sighed grumpily whilst standing at attention. "Busby, heel," commanded Chance, and Busby, with a jingling of his collar, flitted back around to his master once more. "At ease, Bradley. You certainly know how to exaggerate, don't you, Nate? Now, I apologize for the heavy-handed measures, but you will soon understand. There's more to your escort here than your simple refusal to part with your breakfast." I may have taken that a bit too personally as I raised a brow. "I've brought you here to brief you. You may have noticed the child's bedroom in quarantine here. You may have also noticed the numerous security gates you passed through on the way." He stepped over to the observation window and peered in. "This room is Subject 01, also known as Nell. It is the very reason this facility was built. Indeed, the very reason it stands right here. She's incredibly violent, and she's soon going to be your responsibility." I was taken somewhat aback. "My responsibility? You can't mean..." No, wait. Come again? She? Nell? You mean to say that Nell, the room, has an identity, and that she's dangerous?" "Extremely," muttered Chance, the wry smile gone, replaced with a deep look of brooding concern, that which I had never seen on his face before. To say I found it unsettling is an understatement. The following pause felt like a lifetime. "You see," Chance continued, briefly looking down before looking back towards Nell. "Nell is the name we use to refer to Subject 01, but in actuality, it's the name of a young girl who disappeared here many years ago. Little is known of the events that took place that day. All we know for sure, from various witness accounts, is that something unprecedented within the realms of human experience occurred, and that Nell and her bedroom at Tidewell Cottage, 3 Melling Rise, were at the absolute crux of it. We've come to refer to it as the Shift. The event was of great interest to our friends in gray. Isn't that right, Bradley? Well, don't answer that. They had the place locked down most rapidly, and the Tidewell Testing Facility popped up almost overnight. Though not in the same capacity you know it today. The room you're looking upon right now is the very room in which the epicenter of the shift occurred. Everything you see inside is precisely as it was that night in May 1983. I stood listening intently. The mention of that little girl had me on edge. What was so volatile and dangerous that it required an armed guard to escort me? Could it be Nell, the little girl that disappeared? "Giles," I spoke at last. "What is the shift exactly? Is it the girl? Is she behind this?" "I don't know, truth to be told. I've been researching this since day one. There have been several expeditions into the room over the years to try and gather information, clues, anything that might indicate the girl's whereabouts, or to help us understand the phenomenon that started it all. I've sent several men directly to their deaths, I fear." That was an interesting way to phrase it. "You mean to say that you don't actually know what happened to them?" "Oh, some yes. Some have entered and walked out completely unaffected. Others have reported strange side effects. One was quarantined for 14 weeks before he died. What happened to him bears down terribly on my conscience. On the very last expedition some 9 years ago, I sent in a team of 4 to investigate an anomaly. One of the researchers under me at the time came to see me urgently, nervous and shuddering. He had noticed a small inconsistency within the room. The teddy bear, the very one you see now." He tapped faintly on the glass towards the bear, sitting inanimately on the bed approximately 15 meters from where we stood. That bear was looking directly at him. He didn't see it change, he simply noticed it wasn't where it was supposed to be. What happened when that team entered is something I will never forget. I shuddered. "So, what happened in there, Dr. Chance?" I asked tentatively, unsure that I wanted to know. "Nothing. Truly nothing. The monitoring terminal showed no sign of energetic interference," explained Dr. Chance. "But the blood-curdling screams over the radio when they saw whatever they saw, it will haunt me the rest of my days. One of them began to fire their weapon while the team leader stood there screaming, falling to his knees. The other 2 attempted to retreat. One made it back to the door, but the other froze mid-stride directly at the eye line of the bear. It was like a freeze frame. She was locked perfectly in place, not a single twitch from her as she slowly red-shifted and eventually faded away completely." "Red-shifted," I interjected, "as in the shifting of the color spectrum towards the reds observed in the most distant galaxies as they're sped up ever faster out of our reach," said Dr. Chance, finishing off my question. "The very same." "And the one that made it to the door?" I asked uncomfortably. "Oh, he's standing over there," nodded Chance almost over my shoulder. I spun around to face the man who had escaped unharmed. Bradley was standing easy at his post, ever loyal, ever ready to react. His dark gray military-style getup suddenly all the more prominent in my eyes. In particular, the dark gray beret displaying a peculiar badge. A black circular background with simply 2 red dots, horizontally close to each other. I was about to take him a lot more seriously. At least I would have had it not been for the anxiety in my stomach forcing me to make inappropriate comic dialogue. My usual unfortunate coping mechanism. Well, remind me never to work with you, Bradley. The last thing I want to do is die screaming next to you, I said with an awkward chuckle. His eyes darted straight at me, looked me up and down, and with a single disparaging grunt, returned to their original position. Nathan, said Chance, what about the other one? I accidentally interrupted. The one firing his... Dr. Calver, Chance said authoritatively, stopping me in my tracks. I'm telling you this, he continued, reaching into his lab coat pocket, pulling a small silver pocket watch into view and studying it a while. I am telling you all this because I'm going away. Retiring, in fact, for good. He pocketed the watch again. I'm handing it over to you, Nate. I need you to continue our research and protect our colleagues and beyond. You're retiring, I said, stunned. But when? Well, I knew it was coming someday, you old codger. I'm pleased for you. But Giles, me? This is far more than anything that I'm qualified for. I deal with fidgety umbrellas, hungry antique clothes ringers, and things that go bump in the day. Nothing that actually wants to kill me, let alone others. You have an excellent record. You have the knowledge and experience. You essentially know inside out the job that I'm giving you already. Reasoned Chance. I'm passing it to you with the knowledge and peace of mind that once I'm gone, everyone and everything will be in safe, capable hands. Besides, Nell's been dormant for the last 9 years. Why would anything change now? I opened my mouth to speak, but had nothing to say. He was right. I had no logical argument to refute him. I was the right candidate for the job, really, however much I didn't want it. I stood there looking the fool as Dr. Clarence, wry smile back in its full glory, with a single finger pushed his glasses back into place on the bridge of his nose and turned away to the exit. Busby sat for a moment looking at me, head tilted slightly. I couldn't tell if in that moment I felt like I was being watched by a guard dog or as if he was just going to come out and say, "Well, it sucks to be you. Good luck with that." A few seconds felt like a long time. He was really getting a good look at me. "Busby, heel," commanded Chance. "Busby." Busby hesitated for a second. Then he turned to join his master's side as they left the area. Despite my protest, I would spend the next 2 months preparing to take over from him. He even gave me his silver pocket watch, saying that I'd be needing it. It might come in handy if it ever actually worked. I had become more accustomed to the responsibility too, though I had my reservations about it. For one, Chance had been prepping for some kind of expedition, the first in 9 years. It didn't seem to be anything major, just a simple monitoring from outside the room itself. He said he wanted to understand the distance at which the interference began, in an attempt to understand why the near-decade-long dormancy, and to perhaps see if the interference-affected zone itself is subject to change. He had had a few of the Greys put through rigorous training, getting them used to the monitoring equipment that they would be taking inside. Even though his experience outweighed mine by nearly 28 years, I really didn't like the idea of breaking quarantine. I didn't trust that it was completely safe. That and the mere thought of the girl, Nell, sent chills down my spine. This brings me to almost where we are now, 2 nights ago. Dr. Chance's penultimate day on the job. They were to put the plan into action that afternoon, and I was to observe. With a little over 2 hours to go, my nerves ran incredibly high. I sat in my sleeping quarters, tackling relatively simple Sudoku and crosswords, pencil in one hand, sipping from a mug of sugary tea in the other. Above, a large cinnamon bun I'd swiped from the canteen. All the guilty pleasures in the world couldn't change how I felt. That was it. I decided then that I was going to leak this story to the outside world. Knowing what we were doing with all that possibly could go wrong and all those living in the nearby town, I couldn't have it on my conscience having not at least tried to warn them. To warn you all. The chair creaked gently as I twisted to the right and gingerly reached for my laptop. What the? Oh God. Oh no. I knew exactly what that meant too. Something was seriously wrong. It could only be in relation to Subject 01. That's the only reason that they would call me. What was going on? It didn't matter. Whatever it was the real deal, and I had to get there now. I dropped what I was doing immediately and bolted for the door, yanking my lab coat off the hook on the way. The sirens were blaring out in long, droning blasts. I didn't even think about it. I just started running to where I knew I needed to be. I darted out into the hall, past my colleagues' doors as they began to lock down, reinforcement shutters lowering over each one by one. And an accompanying quick and piercing chiming rang out as the shutters individually rumbled down and locked into place. I almost ran into 2 other workers as they briskly walked back to their rooms. "Whoa, watch out, mate, it's only a drill for Christ's sakes," one of them exclaimed, dodging against the wall. "Get to your quarters, it's no bloody drill. Lock up now," I shouted, hardly turning to look at them as I pulled up a sleeve from my lab coat and legged it to the end of the hall where I swung a left. It all started to hit me. It was going to take a good 5 or 10 minutes at least to get to the quarantine chamber, not including the holdups at the security gates. And I wasn't going to risk using the lifts. Bugger, my ID. I reached into my left pocket and I felt the clacking of plastic against plastic. My lanyard was in there. A temporary sigh of relief until I realized again where I was headed. I had time to think about it now. Time to speculate. To worry. What the hell could be happening? The expedition isn't for ages yet, right? Could someone or something have breached quarantine? What would be waiting for me when I get to the chamber? I had a sweat coming on, but it wasn't from the running. I had a growing ball of anxiousness in the pit of my stomach, and the shakes. But I knew it wasn't from the fact that I had missed out on my ill-gotten cinnamon bun. I came to the first gate, I swiped my ID, and I got through without a hitch. I hoped that the rest of them hadn't locked down yet like the sleeping quarters. I picked up speed once more, heart racing, struggling for breath. 1,000,001 different thoughts entered my brain at once and left just as quickly. I hope I'm not too late already. I hope I can actually do something when I get there. Have I got everything that I need? I should have stuffed that bun down on the way. I'm scared. I'm not scared, because I know what to do. Dr. Chance will know what to do. I'm tired. I need to visit the gym more often. Or not. I don't want to make small talk with Bradley. I don't want to not make small talk with Bradley either. I don't want to do anything with Bradley, to be honest. Will Bradley be at the chamber? Have I got my ID? Oh wait, yes, I just used it. Get it together, Nate, mate. I couldn't even think about what time it was. My head was buzzing so much. I reached into my inner pocket, hoping to find the silver pocket watch. I pulled it free and I checked the hands. They were still jammed stuck on about 4:13. Of course, the blasted thing doesn't work. When will I learn? I had half a mind to lob it away in frustration, but decided the better of it and I dumped it back inside, cursing the air as I did so. I flew down a stairwell, pulling myself around each turn on the handrail, almost losing my footing. Just concentrate on getting there in one piece, I thought to myself. Whatever it is, you'll just have to get there first and figure it out later. Security gate number 4 and 5 done. Just one more to go. There were fewer lights down here on this level. Perhaps lower levels of footfall due to the level of clearance had contributed to that. As a result, the glowing pulses of red from the emergency light were ever more apparent. Crash. Tumble. Pain. Screaming. Fluffity fluffing fluff balls, I bellowed, trying not to swear. I slammed right into a wet floor sign. Mop and bucket abandoned right there in the poorly lit hallway, and I ended up in a pile on the cold floor. My knee was pretty bashed up and my palm was scraped. I heaved myself back up to my feet, fuming at myself and the idiot who had left them there. No, I caught the thought before I could take it any further. No need to blame someone else. They would have just been getting themselves to safety and, quite rightly, not attempted to tidy them away. I caught my breath for just a second or two, and I lugged myself down the hall. I wasn't far away now. I could hear distant shouting echoing from further up the last stretch of corridor, and into view came the final checkpoint. A couple of researchers in their lab coats were just passing through. One of the Greys was seeing them in, armed to the teeth. He must have heard my footsteps echoing up the corridor. "Dr. Calver," he called. "This way, come on." I finally made it, sweating buckets and near gasping for air. What's going on?" I choked, flashing my ID. "No time," he barked. "Just get up to the monitoring station right now. Go!" I shoved through the gate and took the first left, up to the monitoring station. One of the researchers ahead held the door open for me as I barged in. "Will someone tell me what in sugar's name is?" And then I saw it for myself. On the monitors, as plain as day for all to see, was Dr. Chance and Busby, inside the quarantine chamber, the vault door shut tightly behind them. I stared at the screens for a second, lip quivering, and then bolted for the door. "Calver, wait!" someone shouted. I ignored them and I ran for the entrance to the chamber as quickly as I could. The Greys had the place surrounded. At least 10 of them with what could have been automatic rifles. I hurtled straight past them and over to the observation window where the team leader was peeking through in a defensive stance. I looked downrange towards Subject 01 and I saw Dr. Chance standing right at the threshold of the room, looking into it. "Giles!" I yelled, bashing on the impact-resistant glass. "Giles, what are you doing?" Whether he heard me or not, he looked back over his shoulder directly at me. I thumped on the window again. "Get out! Get out of there! Giles, for God's sake, get away!" I cried desperately. He smiled at me briefly and turned away again. I couldn't understand it. Why was he smiling? I barely had time to wonder. A deep rumbling emanated from everywhere at once, and I was tackled by the gray team leader. "Get back!" he roared and shoved me backwards. I resisted, trying to get back to the window. I was being grabbed from behind now. I could still see inside the chamber. A gust seemed to pick up inside. Worse than that, it was as though a storm force gale was ripping through. Chance's lab coat flapped around and Busby's long fur whipped in the wind. I tried to jostle free, but was being dragged back step by step. Suddenly, Chance appeared to brace, and Busby moved in the most odd and impossible manner. He was sliding against his will, trying to claw the ground. It was like he was being blown away, but not quite. It was more like gravity was shifting inside the chamber, and he was slipping, trying to stay put. There was a series of bright flashes like lightning tearing through the chamber, followed by an intense, low-pitched and piercing vibration that radiated through the chamber walls and blasted me as if I was a pigeon caught in the jet wash of an airliner. With that, I was wrenched over backwards onto the ground and dragged away. The vibrating stopped dead. Everything was quiet. The rumbling, the vibrating, the shouting, all gone. I was finally able to clamber to my feet. I tried to move closer to the window again to see what had happened, but I was promptly accosted by two of the Greys. I no longer had the will to wrestle them, and it was pretty clear that they weren't going to have any of it. I glanced through a gap between them at the chamber. I couldn't see much, but Dr. Chance was gone. Everything seemed peaceful once more. "Oi, you! Come with me, come on," grumbled a voice approaching from beside me. I couldn't process anything anymore. "But Giles, I whimpered. "You're coming with me, all right?" said the voice and pulled my arm over his shoulder, supporting me. We hobbled back towards the entrance. "You're all right, mate. You look like right crap, but you're all right." "Deep breaths," said the voice. I found it rather comforting. I couldn't stop him. I sniveled. There was nothing anyone could do, said the voice. "Come on, keep coming with me." I began to recognize the owner of it, the man it belonged to. "Bradley," I managed to sigh. "The one and only," he confirmed. "Let's get you sat down." Before I realized it, I was sitting in an office chair outside a room crowded with men in lab coats. They were staring at screens, shocked and stunned. One of them was furiously pressing buttons and saying something about recording. An arm reached in and pulled a door shut. The voices muffled instantly. Bradley towered over me and spoke my name. This was enough to snap anyone out of anything. "Yeah, what?" I responded, feeling sorry for myself. The pain in my knee was coming back. The sting from the graze on my wrist and various bumps and scrapes from the scuffle was starting to take hold. "You gonna start asking me questions? I don't know what just happened. I really don't," I said. "Good, you're starting to sound more like you." He groaned. "No, I'm not asking you anything just yet. I'm just making sure you're still here with us and not away with the fairies." "Yeah, I'm all right, I think," I said, aching to my core. "Look, thanks for helping me out of there." Quite all right. You weren't exactly helping. He scoffed. I looked up at him, somewhat irritated. Don't get so tetchy. You're alive, aren't you? Come on, let's get you into the monitoring station. You're in charge now, you realize. He was right. The thought hadn't even occurred to me. Without Dr. Chance, I was now running this department. Bradley offered a hand, which I grabbed and pulled myself back up. I hobbled to the door, grabbed the handle, and turned to Bradley. I sighed again. Thank you, I said. You're not all that bad. You're still a miserable git, but you're not that bad. I pushed the handle and I let myself into the room. I limped in, looking around, trying to ascertain the situation. Whatever the problem was a moment ago with the monitor, they seemed to have fixed it. One of them noticed me enter. Dr. Calver, said Potts, are you all right, sir? I nodded. I want to know what happened. Tell me you got all of that. I'm going to need to see everything, video recordings, data, energy readings, all of it. Yes, sir, we saw it all, said Iguchi. Yeah, and your little heroics there too, said another. What were you thinking? You're supposed to be running the place, not pulling stunts like that. You're not wrong, Roberts, I said. But the man was like a father to me. I've just watched him vanish into thin air. He was all our friend Calver, began Weiss. You don't. Listen here, I snapped. I intend to find out what happened here. I want to know why and how he was in there, what happened to him, and what is happening now. So get your acts together and pull up all the data immediately. Dr. Calver, said Potts sheepishly. What is it, Dave? You're bleeding, sir, he pointed out. Yes, I completely stacked it on a wet floor sign on my way over. It's no... Your eyes, Nathan. What's up with your eyes? Said Iguchi, alarmed. I was caught off guard. What did he mean? I looked around at stunned, worried, and disgusted faces. I started searching frantically for a reflective surface of some kind. I looked into one of the switched-off monitors, panicking. Something was streaming from the corners of my eyes, too dark to tell what it was. I blinked and wiped away some of the wetness with my fingers. There was blood, lots of it. I began to feel dizzy. The room was spinning. What was happening to me? I needed to... Slam! I passed out. The next thing I know, I wake up here in this hospital-style bed in quarantine. I don't know how I got here and what exactly happened to me. The doctors and nurses have been in regular contact with me over the loudspeaker, asking questions and such. And I managed to deduce from brief conversations with them that I was out for around 36 hours. They wouldn't say how long I've got to stay, though. Every now and again, they give me a fresh meal and drink through a kind of airlock in the door. Still no croissants. I'm able to get up and walk around, but it's still very painful. I've been told that I've got a visitor coming, but guess what? They wouldn't say who. I managed to blag myself a laptop and puzzles too for entertainment. Of course, this is how I intend to get the word out to you all. Take it as a warning from me. Dangerous forces are at play. I ask you now, please stay well away from the facility if you live in or around Long Lilliard. If you see anything unusual in the coming days, do not investigate. Leave the area immediately and carefully to a safe place. Do not add to the disturbance. If you have any family in the area, Make sure that they heed these warnings too. I'm going to do my best to find out what the hell is going on. In the meantime, stay safe. I don't know how long I'm going to be stuck here for, but hopefully I'll get out soon. Oh, my visitor is arriving. I have to go.